Hello and welcome to the Arise interview, where we take time to reflect on the big stories from the news and on the fortunes and affairs of the world in an hour of conversation with commentators, analysts and thought leaders. I'm Charles Anyeko. We're coming up in the next 60 minutes. As President Buhari holds talks with his service chiefs, unrest continues in Nigeria in the wake of the shooting of protesters in Lagos on Tuesday. There is continuing controversy over the events of that night at the Lekki toll gate, with eyewitnesses and the human rights group Amnesty International saying soldiers shot at peaceful protesters, killing several of them and wounding many others. But the army are vehemently denying responsibility, even as there's been widespread condemnation of the violence both at home and abroad. We'll bring you analysis and comment as we continue to piece together what happened on that fateful night. And later, with just 12 days to go before the US presidential and congressional elections, withering attacks from both the Biden and the Trump campaigns as they head into tonight's presidential debate. So, can the last face-to-face meeting between the two candidates give either of them a final boost to get them into the White House? We'll speak to a US political and media strategist coming up. So, continuing controversy here in Nigeria over the events of Tuesday night at the Lekki toll gate in Lagos, when live rounds were used against demonstrators. Eyewitnesses and the human rights group Amnesty International say soldiers shot at protesters as they were peacefully demonstrating. Amnesty says at least 12 people were killed, while the army are vehemently denying responsibility. The hashtag Lekki Massacre is currently trending, and there's been widespread condemnation both at home and abroad from ECOWAS, the UN and elsewhere. There are also outbreaks of violence in Lagos and around the country, with 2 television stations, police depots and prisons attacked and businesses set alight. Here's the Nigerian Army spokesman speaking about the Lagos incident earlier in the day.
Operation Mesa is strictly under the policy directive of the various states. We have them all over the country, and it's the oldest of all the operations. For this operation, you have the military. I sometimes fault when people just specify army. No. For Operation Mesa, what is Operation Mesa? For instance, the one you have in FCT here, you will see a mix of Army, Navy, Air Force, Police, civil defense and all put together. That is the operation we have all over. So these operations are still standing and running. And I am aware that the various state governments are using them in all this capacity. That is internal security. The level we are now is at the level of internal security. And that is why the police proactively came out and then deployed all their force package that are necessary to handle that, and that is where we are. So if there was anything, if it is true, why am I saying if it is true? Because up till this morning before I came here, I even got analysts, people that have analyzed the various videos that were cropped, that what we call it, that were Photoshop put together. If not because I'm not permitted, I would have forwarded it to it. I can forward it to you, send it to them. People who took interest. If this thing is true that they actually shot, they have done the analysis, they are on standby, and conclusively, it's according to them, not me, it is a lie.
Well, that's the Nigerian Army spokesman there. Well, we have a lot to get to grips with today, but first, to respond to what the Army have been saying about that shooting incident on Tuesday in Lagos, I'm joined now on the line by the country director of Amnesty International, Osai Ojigho. Good to talk with you, Osai. We did try to get you on video, but apparently your internet line was very weak. So here we've got you on the line now. What is your reaction to the comments that are emerging from the government and also the army saying that they don't really know what happened and that they can't verify and authenticate the claims that people were shot and killed at Lekki?
Thank you, Charles. I think the first thing is it would be good for the authorities to investigate and let us know who exactly was at the Lekki toll gate shooting at protesters, because eyewitnesses saw them in military uniform, and we all know that it's an offense for people to wear military fatigue and be out there on the streets. So, and the fact that these people who are dressed in military uniform have miraculously disappeared is something that they need to check. They need to really check it, because I think they too should be very concerned and very worried that there are people who are presenting themselves as soldiers and that the military is not aware of them. I think it's a worrying sign. With regard to the information about them verifying what had happened that night, I think we've always reiterated our call that investigations of this kind have to be thorough, they have to be independent, they have to be impartial. So it means a mix of actors have to be involved, the relevant state agencies, but also independent organizations, and as much as possible the victims and their victims' families should be represented to see how they can piece together what has happened. There's been a lot of trust lost as a result of the incident since that Tuesday, and also attacks that protesters have experienced across the country, not only in Lagos. And the authorities will need to give assurance of confidence and witness protection for people to be able to come out and boldly share their personal experiences that night and eyewitness accounts to them. The authorities need to know right now people don't trust them, and they are a bit wary of them. And coming out with blanket statements like, "Oh, we don't think anything happened," does not come out well to encourage people to speak up. The video footage that Amnesty received several as well, and we are going through majority of them. But the ones that we're able to use to corroborate eyewitness accounts that led to us releasing the information yesterday night that at least 12 people were killed in Lagos was just to show you that with the preponderance of evidence that was given by these people, many of them present at Lekki and in Alausa, it means that the authorities need to do a bit more. And I really want to stress that people should not just brush it aside because they weren't there, or they didn't see it, or they were not a part of it. And that they should make sure they are not just dismissing it just because they weren't there. There were people there, and they have shared their information.
Okay, well, I mean, I think the key point here, Osai, really, is you've made some very good points there about the expectations of the people from the army and the government, but also people want to know and to be absolutely 100% sure that they can authenticate the evidence that Amnesty International is putting forward with regard to these killings. I mean, have you actually seen evidence of dead bodies? I'm trying to understand how Amnesty came to the conclusion that 12 people were shot and killed.
So, when people put out a claim, the next step that we do is to ensure that we can get additional information. How many people were there? How many other people were with you? Where were you standing? How did you know somebody was dead? Is someone lying down? So a lot of questioning is done to be able to piece together the eyewitness account. The video footage are time-stamped, and they are able to locate that what you are seeing on the video was taken on a particular day at a particular time with a particular device. And those are the things you use in order to begin to piece the information together. More so, what was even more worrisome was the fact that people reported that they saw bodies being moved by these officers on the site. And it's something that has happened before in the past, and gives credence to the view that there might be even much more casualties as the days go by, and as the investigation is, if the investigation is done properly. And one very good example is what happened with the IMN, the Shites, in 2015, when there was all these disputes as to whether people were killed or not, until the panel came out and said 350 people were killed because they found a mass grave somewhere. So at the point in time when people were claiming that people had died, there was all these disputes until after the panel had completed its work, and even Amnesty's research had put things to light based on several people that were interviewed. So it's a pattern we've seen. Denial first, and then the revelation will come out afterwards. What we are saying is that this sort of ways of refuting information without properly carrying out and listening to people who are on the ground will only lead to this situation where people are not sure what is going on. And it's not necessary. The videos are clearly shown that something happened. And with the amount of ammunition that were shot that night, the chances of someone dying is high based on even the probability. The fact that ambulances were not able to access people when they got there shows that even those that could have been saved were lost because they couldn't get the help they needed. So I think we need to go beyond just dismissing things and rather look at the facts and try to unearth the truth. Just dismissing it or asking people to come and speak to you. These are people that were just shot by people appearing to be soldiers. They're not going to come to you immediately. And you need to prepare that enabling ground for them to be able to share their information with you. And because of security...
Okay. Osai, I do understand that, and I apologize for interrupting you, but you are, of course, a lawyer, and you know that a lot of what you've said in the last few minutes, sounds like circumstantial evidence. And there's got to be prima facie evidence when allegations are being made against the army and the Nigerian police. I mean, a lot of people would anecdotally agree with what you're saying, but they still want to see some concrete evidence, either of dead bodies, either of families coming out to identify that their loved ones have been killed, or the names of people who have been killed. I mean, do you have any of that?
We have some names, but you will need the consent of the families to reveal them. And so that's why the call we are making is that government shouldn't just dismiss that these things didn't happen. Because if you're already bringing out the position that these things did not happen, why would people come out? You have to be open-minded. You have to say there were incidents that night, there were shots fired, there are allegations flying around. Let us prepare the particular witness protection systems we need in order for people to come out to share what they have experienced. You have to listen to them, and then you can proceed from there.
Osai, I want to thank you very much indeed for giving us the time. I know it was very difficult for us to finally link up with you, and you've had other meetings that you've got to attend to. So thank you very much indeed. Osai Ojigho is the country director of Amnesty International. You're watching the Arise interview. Plenty more still ahead as we continue our chat about the controversy surrounding Tuesday's shooting incident in Lagos. Stay with us. Welcome back to the Arise interview. I'm Charles Onyegulu. So that shooting in Lagos on Tuesday evening still making top bill on news bulletins in Nigeria and around the continent, just before curfew, with many youths gathered at the Lekki toll gate to demand an end to police abuses. Live shots rang out and several people were left dead and dozens more wounded. Eyewitnesses said it was the army, and the human rights group Amnesty International said at least 12 people were killed by soldiers and police who shot directly at protesters. The army has dismissed the reports, calling them fake news. But Nigerian and non-Nigerian people, both at home and abroad, are demanding answers, and there are increasing calls for the government to provide those answers. Here's the governor of Lagos State, Babajide Sanwo-Olu, speaking earlier on Arise TV.
Army do not report to me. I do not have any direct reporter line with the military. I have escalated this to the Chief of Army Staff, and I'm also setting up a judicial panel of inquiry to investigate this. And even they doing their own investigation. We have to do our own investigation and be able to get to the root cause, or find out, who ordered this, where did they come from. So it's something that we're not going to gloss over. It's something that we're taking very, very, very seriously. And like I said, a judicial panel of inquiry will be set up to investigate this and bring books for all Nigerians to see who or how we got to this level, we got to this stage. And I have escalated this, like I said, also to the military authorities.
And that's the governor of Lagos State, Babajide Sanwo-Olu. And for reaction to what's been happening in Lagos and around Nigeria, I'm joined now in the studio by the rights activist and peace and security expert, Jaye Gaskia. Thank you very much indeed for coming in.
Thank you for having me.
So Nigerians insistently demanding answers to the questions of what happened on that fateful night in Lagos and who shot at protesters, killing several of them. Presumably you're one of those demanding action.
Yes, I am. And you can see why Nigerians would not believe the government if the government insists that nothing happened. This protest came about for a reason, and it's to protest brutality, acts of brutality and violations of human rights by the police, but also by the entire security architecture in the country. And so people who have witnessed that, who have been victims of that, and who are protesting against that, it's going to be quite difficult to convince them against the evidence of their own eyes that nothing really happened. And listening to the spokesperson of the army and also the governor of Lagos State, if you listened to what the governor said, the Lagos State government appears to be convinced that an incident happened.
Well, they're convinced that the army were present.
Yes, and that there is an incident.
Right.
Exactly.
But they're not.
But they're not convinced. But they don't know how.
Being
Exactly.
Killed. Right.
Exactly. And so they're saying that okay, we want to set up an investigation. So the fact is that there was an incident. The army was there, protesters were there, and there was an incident. Okay, now the scale of it, the scope of it, who did what, is what we need answers to. And those answers have to be provided very rapidly. Because the protest began, and they have lasted this long because citizens lack trust in government and its institutions. So the way to build trust is not by wasting time. It's not by the way to build trust is by taking quick, decisive action. So the army spokesperson said there are things that they are doing in the background. You can't be doing these things in the background. You can't be doing it behind, the shadows, as it were. You have to be more open about it, and so that's the way you are going to build confidence. But it is clear that an incident happened. It is also clear from what we have heard and what we have seen that people were shot at and that lives were lost. Now, if you also listened to the Amnesty country director very well, part of the challenge here also is because government's response have been one that is contradictory. So you have institutions of government at the federal level seems to be dismissive, and institutions of government at the state level, the subnational level, seems to be open to say, okay, we can do this. And so there is no coordination. And because there is no coordination and you are sending, these discordant signals, you are not putting in the mechanisms that are necessary. There are parents who have lost persons. There are young persons.
Yeah, but the question is, who are those parents? And we haven't actually seen them.
We are not going to see parents, and we are not going to see friends who have lost, friends who shared videos, for example, of colleagues that are now missing, presumed dead, and so on and so forth. But they are not going to come out again. I mean, look at what is happening in Lagos at the moment. So this was a protest that had been on for this long. And then after that incident,
right.
And then after that incident, suddenly protesters are no longer
Yeah,
really
but
much
look,
on the street.
I
So
understand
there must
all
be
that.
something must have happened.
I understand all that, but the point remains that by not providing evidence to the Nigerian public, you're actually, not you in particular, but the protest movement is giving ammunition to the Nigerian government to continue its denials, because there is no evidence. I mean, there is no unimpeachable evidence that we can all see. I mean, we're a television station, we're very objective.
Absolutely.
If you provide the evidence, we'll run the evidence.
Absolutely.
But so what we're saying is, why aren't we hearing? I mean, if somebody's family, family member or something was killed, if it was mine, I would want justice. I'd like to come out there and hold the soldiers who did this to account. And the way you do that is by providing that information. So why aren't we hearing from those families? Why aren't we having names provided to tell us that this is actually what happened? I mean, that these are the people who are missing. Where are those people?
Okay. So now, again, you have to situate this current situation within the context of how the protest has evolved itself. Now, and I say that the role that the rest of civil society and the Human Rights Committee needs to play is the kind of role that Amnesty is playing, that other organizations are playing in trying to actually go there and retrieve the evidence from the protesters and bring the evidence out. Some of this evidence are being gathered. I'm very certain, for instance, that Amnesty has some evidence, and that's why they've limited themselves to 12, because that's what they can. Okay,
that's what they can authenticate.
Authenticate at the moment. But they've also not brought out, made revelations about the names, who the families are, because again, it's part of the demand for a framework for accountability and for witness protection, so that people are not going, because we know in the past things have happened. Now, and then on the part of the protest, that's why this can only come from us, and not the protest, because the protests have evolved within the context of the narrative that it is a leaderless and leaderless protest with dispersed organization. So to come out as a protest movement and come out with this evidence is to dispute that narrative that it is.
Well, I don't think so at all. I think the fact is that they're two different things. I mean, if you go out and shoot people, you require evidence in order to hold the people who did the shooting to account. And I don't see what it's got to do with leaderless.
And the evidence is going to be given. It's being given to the people that they can trust. Okay. Now, what I'm saying is that the way the protest has been organized thus far is that you don't have a central, coordination mechanism that has been issuing out.
Right.
Okay. So it's not going to come. The evidence is not going to come from a non-existent central coordination, mechanism. It's going to come by being pieced together, from people who believe that something happened and who want to play a role in ensuring that there is accountability.
Right, okay, we've got about a minute to go. We actually got 30 seconds. What's the best and quickest way to diffuse the tensions right now in Nigeria?
The best and quickest way to diffuse the tension right now in the country is for the president to come out, address the nation, and address the nation not with plans, not with statements like we are going to do this, but that this is what we are doing, because it's been ongoing for 2 weeks. So I would hope that government has been meeting and consulting for 2 weeks. So come out with what you're going to do.
You're watching the Arise interview. Plenty more still ahead as we continue our chat about the controversy surrounding Tuesday's shooting incident in Lagos. Stay with us.